All right, we are live now. I am super excited, and thank you for everyone that has questions. We will address those. I have Nathan Cornett, and Nathan really is he's a very humble guy. So I'm gonna just brag on him a little bit. Um, he is very much a real estate investor. He has a little bit in out of state. He does the short term rentals. He has primary residences in San Diego, and Nathan, a big thing that I get on the lending side is like, hey, Michael, I know there's such a lack of inventory. I know rates are can't afford to buy in my local market, but I know investing in real estate, is a good play. So if it's okay, kind of talk about yourself really quick, what got you started, and take the floor, please.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I love talking about myself. I don't know about all this humble talk, but Mike is humble. If you want to talk about humble, um, San Diego is where I'm from. I was actually born in St. Louis, but moved here. Thank the Lord God when I was about 2 because I love San Diego. And my wife bought her first house before we were married in 2008, very end of 2008. Which, if you were buying houses in 2008, you are a genius, just like my wife was. It was a good time to buy property. And we got married, and we decided to buy our second house years. I mean, it took us years to save up the down payment that we needed. And I think it was about 6 years or so. Yes, it's plus or minus about 6 years. And we thought about selling the first house, and we thought, you know what, let's make this part of our, it seems like every wealthy person that I know, every stable, wealthy person that I know has real estate. So let's make this part of our retirement. And we're going to buy another house, and we'll keep the first one, and we'll rent it out, and that kind of thing. And so that's what we did back in 2000. Maybe it was 2015. I can't remember exactly, but it was 5 or 6 years after we got married, and we were able to do that, but we really didn't know what we were doing. So then, kind of going along the same lines, we did that a third time. As we grew older in our careers and we made more money, we were able to buy a third property in San Diego, and we did the same thing again. This is before we had any inclination of buying out of state. And then my wife kind of started to, well, my brother-in-law started talking about out-of-state investing.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk
Sure.
about that. So you wanted to stay local. Was it because you wanted to familiarize yourself more with the area? I mean, what made you want to start there?
In San Diego?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was familiar to us. We know it, right? East County. I wish I had bought 10 houses in 2008, but
Yeah.
I really didn't know what we were looking at, and I didn't know what I know now. So, yeah, San Diego's home, and I know that it's a good market, and I watched the crash, right? And a lot of people got really hurt in 2006, 2007, I think it was. And then I also saw the recovery and got to witness that. And so I realized that San Diego is just a really good market. I would love it if I could own everything here in San Diego.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for sharing that. When you guys were starting out, I know maybe podcasts weren't as popular. Was there any, and I know Joanna, your wife, Mrs. Cornett, she's very educated with real estate. What were you guys listening to? What were you guys, I guess, watching or reading that kind of helped jumpstart the investing side of real estate?
So back then, we had no input. The only input we had is a couple people in our church who seemed to be very wealthy, and we just wanted to be like them. So I had a couple conversations with them. They were my podcasts. And they basically just said, yeah, sure, you should buy another house. That was their advice. It wasn't until 2019 that my brother-in-law started talking about this out-of-state stuff. And we were like, oh, okay, cool. I was very hesitant, was not very excited about spending money out of state. What happens if the water pipe breaks, or, I can't trust these people. What if they overcharge me? All of those kinds of things were in my mind. And I just didn't trust it. It wasn't until I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is, I think, most of your listeners that are, or viewers who are interested in out-of-state investing or real estate investing in general are going to probably have a similar story. Rich Dad, Poor Dad has been very influential in our world. But the biggest thing for me was realizing that my house is not an asset. It's not an asset until it produces, until it makes money for me. And that was the mind shift that I needed to start realizing that, these things that I'm buying are not, they're just costing. They're not adding value or wealth. So, and I had the value of seeing our house make some money, right? Like our previous 2 houses that we had bought, we were able to turn cash flow from those houses. But it wasn't until I got involved. I don't know how much further down this rabbit hole you want me to get into, but Rich Dad Poor Dad was where
Yeah.
I, like, my mindset shifted.
Okay.
But it was a guy named Michael Zuber with One Rental at a Time that really launched us. And I'm thankful for my brother-in-law who introduced us to this guy, because he has no bells and whistles. I mean, the man is very direct, and he just kind of says it how it is. But my biggest frustration, if that I could use that word, I'm not even sure if that's the right word. One of my biggest frustrations with this whole world is I feel like everyone's always trying to sell me something. Right? It's like anytime you talk to somebody about real estate, it's like, hey, use my product, and or buy my book or whatever. And I didn't particularly like that very much. But Michael Zuber just gave a lot of free content and a lot of help. And the way he presented it was, look, I got too many people asking for my help. So I wrote down everything that's in my head that I would tell you if I were to have coffee with you, and I put it in this book. You should just read the book and then let's talk. And it was really that simple. So that's what launched us into out-of-state investing, because he gave a formula. He gave it's not a formula really, but it's more like a framework. He gives a framework to understand if something's a good deal or if something's a bad deal or if something's a really great deal. And that's what kind of gave me the confidence to start looking. And then I started to see, oh, this could actually really be a good deal. This could actually make us money.
Let's go deep on that. Thanks for sharing that. So when you guys started looking at a state, was it a capital scenario? Was it like, I want to diversify? Was it, hey, wow, there's some markets where I don't need to put all this money in and get that cash flow return? What kind of, I guess, steam engine that?
Yeah. I think that the biggest fear I had with San Diego was twofold. And I wouldn't say that I necessarily feel this way right now. And I think we're going to get into a little more details later. But back a couple of years ago, I mean, really 3 years ago now, it was, man, I don't know where California politics are going. It's really expensive. I mean, and if I knew what I know now, I wish I would have bought a lot more 3 years ago. But I was really afraid and fearful of San Diego real estate. And I'm less afraid now, for sure, less concerned. But back then I was really concerned. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to look out of state. And I wanted to find a place that if I invested some money and bought a property or two, I wouldn't go bankrupt if things didn't go well. So I was looking for a low barrier to entry, right? And
What does that
that was
mean? What does that mean? What is low barrier to entry?
well, in San Diego, if you want to buy a real estate investment property and you've got to put 20% down, 25% down, you would know better than I would on all that stuff, but it's a lot of cash, right? If you got to put 20% down on $1 million property, which will buy you basically a shoebox, you got to have $200,000 cash, which is just a lot of cash. That's a lot of capital. So, anyways, I started looking in other parts of the country, and there's a lot of parts of the country where you can get cash flowing, appreciating assets for $10,000 or $20,000. And so that was that was appealing to me. And really from a risk perspective, not even so much a cash flow or equity appreciating perspective, but just from a risk perspective. If this doesn't go well, if I screw this up, it's most likely not going to bankrupt me and my family. So that's how I started.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think real estate is a means to an end, right? I mean, a lot of people have 9-to-5 jobs, and it's an opportunity where you could invest something and helps have someone pay for your mortgage, and there's great tax benefits, and then that cash flow. Let's go deep now and narrow it down to the market. So when you were looking at out-of-state investments, did you have someone that you trusted in that state that can kind of give you an idea on deals out there? Were you doing a lot of research yourself?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. I did have a realtor that I found by just doing a Google search, and I think that a common denominator that you will find with real estate investors, at least the common denominator that I have found, is that they're hustlers, man. They're going to go figure out the answer, and so
Hmm.
if they're thinking, I kind of like this area, they're not just waiting for a deal to fall in their lap. I mean, we have to go look for it, and we have to ask a lot of questions, and we have to interview a lot of people. We have to be okay with things not going perfectly and adjusting a lot. There's a lot of course corrections that have to be done. This doesn't necessarily mean it's a lot of work. It can be. I mean, it kind of depends on how fast you want to scale or what you want to do, but it doesn't necessarily mean you put in a ton of hours. But you're definitely asking a lot of questions. You're not afraid of having phone calls. You're not afraid of spending time on Google searching areas and understanding things. There's a lot of tools now. One of the biggest concerns that I receive from some of the older guys in my world who are really, really big in real estate, but they're older. They're on the retirement side, and they were like, well, how could you buy a house and not see it? I'm like, well, I did see it. I did a virtual tour on Zillow, and my real estate
Wow.
agent streamed me in, and I just did a FaceTime with her.
Yep.
And I saw the real estate agent's reviews, and I talked to 4 people that she had done transactions with, and they loved what she did, and she was very helpful. So I trusted her based on those things. Well, you didn't know any of those people. How could you trust their reviews? I'm like, well, I guess that's the risk side for me, but to me it was pretty mitigated because I heard positive things from multiple different angles. So I'm willing to take that risk. Same thing with the house. Yeah, I didn't see it. I didn't see any of our houses that we've bought out of state. Uh,
Did you
I
go
mean,
there for the home inspection, or was there
nope,
any time that you
nothing.
actually visited? Wow. Yeah.
The first
Isn't that
time,
amazing?
the first time I saw our houses was 2 months ago. Maybe it was 3 months
Yeah.
ago now, but it's the first time that I've seen any, and I still haven't seen our property in Florida.
Yeah. Um, what was the first out of state? Where did you invest in first out of California?
Uh, yeah, it was St. Louis. And everybody
Can I
always asks the same question: Why St. How'd you pick St.
can,
Louis? Why'd
can
you pick St. Louis?
can I bring up something interesting that I read an
Sure,
article the other day?
would love
So
to.
the top 5 markets to invest, the top 5 markets to retire in. The top 5 markets to retire in. Number 1 was Georgia, 2 was Florida, 3 was Tennessee, 4 was Missouri, and then 5 was Massachusetts. And this is on Bankrate. This is for 2021. And I see Missouri, and I know you have properties out there. I'm like, man, Missouri. And can you just talk about? Let's just go into like, and we don't want to get too personal, but like, what are you cash flowing on those properties in St. Louis
Sure.
right now? And I think that is absolutely mind blowing, and hopefully gives people hope that you don't need to put hundreds of $1,000s down to get the cash flow.
Yeah, would you mind sending me that article? I would love to see that.
Yeah,
There's always pluses and minuses about every place that you might want to invest in. And Missouri does not have as many positives as some other places. But I picked Missouri because I was born there, and I could get a direct flight there from my house. That mattered to me. I have my brother-in-law is investing somewhere else, or was investing somewhere else. And I did not like the idea of doing a 2-part flight, right? If my travel day to get out to my properties is 8 hours, that's just too much for me. So I was looking for some place I could get to really fast, if I had to. And then I have an aunt that lives there, and she lets me stay at her house, and she's
that
an
helps.
incredible person. So I felt like some kind of connection to St. Louis, and then some of the other stuff that I was looking for was, can I get a house for $50,000 to $100,000 that will cash flow? And so I have a spreadsheet that I use
Let
that I
me let
learned.
me let me explain. Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
Let
it's
me
all right.
explain just really quick what cash flowing is to the people watching right now.
Hmm.
Basically, what cash flow is if you have a loan on it, you're going to have a mortgage payment, right? So that's going to be your principal, interest, property taxes, and homeowners insurance. And there's a spreadsheet that I can actually send to other people that talks about, there's a cap rate. There's you got to set some money aside for utilities, and there's just different things with maintenance that you want to set aside. But all those expenses together, and then what it rents out for, that difference is your cash flow. right? That's the money that you're putting into your wallet that's positive, net positive. It is what cash flow is. Thank you.
Yeah, and my goal was to just get to $200 a door. So if I could net
Start
two
small,
hundred
right?
dollars a door, then I'm feeling okay. But it's okay. And it's based on a $60,000 property. Maybe if you go up a little bit higher, you have to shoot for a little bit higher numbers. But if I could get to $200 a door, I'm content with that. And really, I think something that's important to note is right out of the gate, right? So rents tend to rise over time, while my payment to the bank is going to stay the same. So I want to net right out of the door, right out of the gate, making money, and so that's kind of what I was looking for. And my basic goal was, or my basic framework is, I take 30% out of the gross rent estimate.
Is that like
For
a
10%,
vacancy factor that you're doing,
yeah,
or
vacancy, maintenance, capital improvement, and property management.
capital
So
expenditure? That's the right. Yeah.
yeah, capital expense, because eventually I'm gonna have to replace an AC or a roof or who
Yep.
knows what. So and there's always stuff. Home ownership, it is what it is. There's always going to be stuff that has to be fixed, and so you have to plan for that, and you have to be prepared for that. And so I just sucked out 30% right off the top, and then you have to, of course, pay for your mortgage, your taxes, and your insurance. So you pull that out. You can estimate all that. So there's so many online tools to estimate all of that stuff. And it
Yep.
doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be pretty close, right? And then whatever I'm left over with is my net. And so that's kind of how I viewed those properties. And I used Zillow rental estimates. I used Rent-A-Meter Pro, and then
Yep.
the most important factor to all of this is the team that you have on the ground there. And I would say that if you're looking to invest out of state, that's probably the first thing that you're going to want to begin to develop. David Green on Bigger Pockets has a lot
Bigger
to say about
pockets.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, if you're looking to go out of state, biggerpockets.com's got a ton of great information. Michael Zuber with One Rental at a Time, ton of great information. But that's one of the things that they all talk about is your team on the ground is important. Who your property management team is. If you've got a realtor, you probably generally, especially when you start, you're going to have a realtor, and your lender. That's a big deal. Those are kind of your big three probably, but there's others that you're going to want to have on the ground there. And what you do is you verify, like, hey, I think I can get $1,000 a month rent for this property. Does that sound right? And they're plenty of times my property managers come back to me and said, no way, man, you're getting $750 in that neighborhood. And the truth is, I don't even property manage in that area. So if you're going to go there, you're going with somebody else, but here's the reality that you're going to deal with.
So you're doing a couple of things, and thank you for sharing that. And that was a lot to unload. There's some different platforms, Rent-O-Meter and then Zillow. And then if you have someone that you trust that's a property manager out of state, you're simply giving them a phone call or shooting them a text. Hey, can you give me an idea on this address, this square footage, this bed and bath, what I can assume that that's going to rent out for? So you're going through 3 different steps to really give you an idea on what the market rent is for with an area that you're probably not that familiar with.
Right. Yeah, and the team on the ground is so important because they live there, right? And
Totally.
a property manager in particular, realtors can be very helpful because typically they know the area really well. But your property manager is probably your most important. That's your linchpin, in my opinion, because A, they're going to be the ones stuck managing the property once you buy it, and B, they tend to know their city really well.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've got a property across the street that rents for X. Or last time I put a property close to there on the market, it rented for Y. And so those managers are really important.
Let's summarize all of that. So for people that are looking to get into investing, a good starting place is probably somewhere local, somewhere that they're familiar with. If maybe the barrier of entry is a little bit harder in that specific market, if you can go out of state and you have a family member, you have a friend, you have a real estate agent, that's probably a good second place to start. For you, that was Missouri, right? Now, let's jump into your third place, Florida. Let's talk about Largo. Let's talk about that short-term rental, because that's probably a pretty unfamiliar place to you. You may not have as many boots in the ground, and you kind of had to maybe create those relationships. So take me into Florida now, which is where your other property is located. And what did you go to get that property that's killing it, cash flowing? If you don't mind.
No, Florida's fun because we actually took our family on a family vacation back there. Gosh, I think it's been almost 2 years now. My wife would know. She would know exactly what month and year we went. But we took a family vacation to an area we thought we might want to be in, right by Indian Rocks Beach, just outside of Tampa. And so we just booked a hotel, and we had Googled and gotten some referrals for management companies in the area. We knew that we wanted to do short-term rental there because it's a heavy vacation destination. So
By the
we,
way,
we
I'm just visualizing you got so many kids. You're on the fourth one now, right?
the fourth one's due at the end of this month.
Yeah. So you're gonna have 4 kids. I can only imagine family vacations with the Cornett family. It's like, hey kids, we're gonna take a Saturday and go house hunting, like any state, and that's fun, right? I mean, that you're setting up their future for success. But I'm just
Totally.
visualizing a vacation for the Cornett family is probably a little bit more unorthodox than other families.
And this one was actually, I had all 3 kids with me this morning. We're doing a rental turnover in La Mesa, and so they all came with me to the property. We
Yeah,
did the
that's so
inspection.
cool. That's so
I had them help me
invaluable.
clean. Yeah, I had them help me clean some stuff up, and that's they're part of the family business. So whether
Yeah,
they
sorry to
like it or
interrupt
not.
you. I just thinking about that in my head. But anyway,
Oh
back to
yeah,
Tampa. Back to going out there.
yeah. No, the kids will complain like, "Why are we still in the car?" It's like we just want to go check out one more property, and we did that. We went and we checked out. We probably checked out 10 different properties just on
Yeah.
Zillow. I mean, we didn't go with a realtor or anything. We just like on Zillow pulled them up and just drove all over the place looking at them. Like, what does this price point in this area get? And that's how eventually that's how we found this other property. Was we kind of knew the area, right? Like, and we had
Okay.
some guidelines. Like, we don't want the house to be more than about a mile from the beach.
Okay.
I mean, the stuff that was right on the sand was pretty expensive, and I'm a little mildly concerned about a hurricane and the sea damage. So we were like, okay, let's do something a little bit further out. Um, we should be able to get $200 to $400 a night for the property. So there was some like guidelines that we had that we were following. But that was kind of it was a fun experience, to be honest. We hung out by the pool, went to the beach and played, and also threw the kids in the rental car and drove all over the place looking for properties. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Joanna and I had a good time with that, but we didn't end up buying anything from there. We just were looking. It was it was just an adventure to go on. Eventually we ended up buying this house, but we never saw it. I didn't go and visit before we bought it.
Wow. So you leave, you go back home, you and your wife are like, hey, this is a good market, short-term rental. What was next? Did you guys start Googling property managers, real estate agents?
So on that trip, we had actually lined up some of the stuff, and we interviewed a potential property manager that was a referral from somebody. I can't remember who, but Joanna had gotten a connection from somebody. And so we actually met with him and his team. Really nice guy and really good at what he does, to be honest. So anyways, we got to interview him and talk to him, and he's been an incredible asset to us because every single time we'd see a property we think we like, we'd send it to him. And then most of the time he would say, yeah, not very good for Airbnb. Don't do that.
So
Nope,
helpful. That's just
not good.
invaluable.
Yeah, and that's his business is short-term rental management. And
Got
so
it.
I'm happy to pay him. I hope he's not watching, but I'm happy to pay him whatever he wants because I need it. I mean, I cannot do short-term rental without a very engaged management company.
Yeah.
Who not only manages like the house being ready, right? Like having toilet paper and the coffee and the different things you have to have in a short-term rental, but he's also managing reviews, he's managing bookings, all the questions that travelers have. I mean, we're running a hospitality business there.
Yeah.
So anyways, he was incredibly helpful because he would tell us, this is not a good area, don't buy there. Okay, thanks, great, good to know, don't buy. Very simple. And when we finally settled on the house that we have right now, he was like, this is a great area. If you can, buy it. Figure it out. And
How did you find, because he's a property manager, was he also a real estate agent? Were you
no,
looking at these listings yourself? How did you
yeah,
guys do that? Okay.
yeah, we were looking at them all ourselves
Got it.
on Zillow mostly, which
Were you trying to find off market deals? Were you trying to find a property that was move-in ready, because it's probably harder to, do renovations when you're out of state? What's your take on that specifically to the Florida?
Yeah, so for this one, we're looking for move-in ready, right?
Okay.
So as it is, we'd have to furnish, paint. I mean, the whole 9 yards, getting it ready for an Airbnb. So we didn't really want to do a construction project, and so this one was turnkey, ready to go. I would look for off-market stuff. I think that the more you get to know a market and the more networking you do within that market, the more likely you are to find properties that are
Yeah.
off market. Someone might be willing to let it go for a little bit less, but all that stuff's relationships. And so all of that is knowing the right people in the right places at the right time. And for our experience in Florida, we didn't have that, right? We were working on building it. And so anyways, we just ended up finding one on Zillow. It was fine. It was a good experience. And I'd probably would do it that way again, a second time. To be honest, because I mean, it works. But the issue is when you what happens is you do something until it doesn't work anymore, and then the average person says, "Well, it doesn't work. I tried," and
Yeah.
that's in our world. You can't do that. You don't have that luxury. It's, well, that didn't work to try and do it that way.
Hmm.
So can I do it this way? Can I do it that
Now,
way? Could I try it another way? And that's what you have to do in order to find the
while
right one.
holding on to it, you're not talking about selling or liquidating. You're like, hey, this route maybe isn't
Right.
going well. Maybe isn't my marketing strategy, specifically maybe Airbnb, right? You're figuring it out, and you have kind of a safety net to hedge against some of those lost months, right? Whether that's long term or short term, but you stick it through. Like, do you have a time frame on, like, okay, hey, you know what, these numbers aren't lining up? Is that 6 months? Is that a year? Is that 2 years? What has it been for you?
So two things. First of all, I'm only talking about the acquisition of a property, right? So in terms of finding it on Zillow using an agent or off market, going owner to owner, I'm just saying I was only talking about the acquisition side of finding a property and then the networking that's required there. In
Yeah.
terms of how do I value uh, the long-term value of an asset, I
Yeah.
think you have to hold it for at least a year. And then even that, like my St. Louis properties, I don't think they perform nearly as well as I think they can. So, and I did a lot of capital improvement investment on them.
Mm-hmm.
One of them needed a full HVAC system. I mean, it just
Yeah.
needed it. Well, unfortunately, it's the first year. It's actually the first 6 months of receiving rents. So I am negative on that property for months and months and months and months until it can recover from that. Right. So I'm looking at it thinking, okay, this is capital improvement. So I'm going to just go ahead and do it. So I'm in my mind, I need at least 24 months on the long-term rentals to kind of see where we're at, where we end up.
Okay.
And then on short term, I think you can know a lot faster if it's going to make money or not. And you can also see bookings. And so you can project a little bit. You can kind of project out, right? Like we're booked pretty heavily for the next 3 months. After
That's
that,
so.
it's pretty sparse, but it's also how
Yeah.
short-term rentals are, right?
Yeah.
People, we actually do short-term rental of our personal residence. This house that I'm sitting in right now, I live in. It's my full-time residence, but we put it on Airbnb and we're able to rent it out for between $400 a night to $1,000 a night, right? Depends on the season.
Yeah. That's amazing.
It's fantastic. It's great. So, but most of our rentals come in like the week before, 2 weeks before, which is weird to me. Like if you're going to spend $2,500 on a week trip, or whatever, maybe $4,000 during the summer, they're $4,000 or $5,000 for a 5-6 night trip. And people will book like the week before they come. It's shocking to me, but it's just, that's kind of how short-term rentals are in my experience.
Got it. A little bit more quicker. Okay.
Yeah, that's been our experience. Now, other people who are better at this thing, they might say, "Well, you're doing something wrong, Nathan."
Yeah.
And hey, if you're listening and you want to give me some input and some advice, I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Can you talk about, so a big takeaway I had on kind of the long-term side is you want to cash flow about $200 a month. Can you explain like cap rate, and when you're assessing a property, right? Obviously you're taking the rents, how much you're putting down, which is going to affect what your net cash flow is. Can you just take me through how you think if a deal is like good or not? Like if it's okay, and I think this is going to be really helpful for a lot of people watching. Take me from the very, very beginning and then till the time that you put up an offer hoping to win that deal.
Yeah, so that is a complex question, Mike. Honestly, it'd be better if I had a whiteboard here or I had some kind of graphic. But so cap rate is something that a lot of investors use to determine the value or the efficacy of a deal. And it's usually used on the commercial side. Larger developers use it. All commercial people use it. On the residential side and on kind of my side of things, it's pretty small time, right? I'm small. I prefer to terms of it in think of it in terms of cash on cash return.
Okay.
How much cash do I have to put into it versus how much am I going to get out of it each year? And that
How
gives
long
me a
is that going to take me to
percentage.
recoup? Kind of.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, you should I'm kind of looking for between 8 and 12% of my money every year, right? And so that's kind of the
Now,
goal
is
that
that
I
cash
have.
on cash or is that a cap
Cash
rate
on cash. No,
calculation?
cash
Okay.
on cash.
Yeah. Can you say that one more time for the viewers again? So you're
Yeah,
taking a look.
I'm looking at like how much cash do I have to put into this thing. That includes my down payment on the mortgage, any loan fees or costs associated, any closing costs associated. If you're using a hard money loan, which is a whole nother conversation, costs to use that money. And then any make ready costs, right? Like if I buy a 2-bedroom and I'm thinking the numbers all work, but I need to add a third bedroom, that's going to cost 50 grand. I need to add all of that together, and
Okay.
whatever my cash is that I need to put down on that property versus how much money do I earn? How much do I, and it really is your net. It's how much do you net at the end of the day after you've paid your vacancy and maintenance savings and your capital improvement savings and my property manager, all my expenses wrapped up into this number, and I'm generating a certain amount per month. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at the end of the year. How much did I earn versus how much did it cost?
Okay.
And I'm looking for like a 10% plus would be ideal. But in San Diego, you might only get 4 or 5%, and cap rates
Right.
might be 1 or 2%. And it kind of
And
depends.
a low cap rate isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, what to me in my elementary knowledge on this stuff is sometimes a lower cap rate is a more demanded area, right? So you may have better cap rates in the Indianas, the Ohio's, the Michigans, maybe Tennessee's of the world, but depending on the market, appreciation is a big point, and that's why you have properties in San Diego, and most people aren't going to cash flow like you're cash flowing because you just got in at a good time, right?
Right.
So would you agree with that? Cap rate,
100%.
maybe? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, from my perspective, I look at cash on cash return. I look at yield because
Yeah.
I don't particularly care about cap rate personally. Just at this stage in my investment life, I don't care. However, I care very much about how much I'm going to cash flow every month. To determine whether it's worth it or valuable. I don't buy for equity. I think there's a lot of people in the world who are, especially in San
Stressful,
Diego,
right?
San Francisco,
Pretty
LA.
risky. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't trust that. I mean, we all witnessed 2007, right? So 2006, 2007, values didn't hold. Now they came back, and so I'm in this thing for the long term, and things are going to go down again. But if I can continue to cash flow, even if my values, quote unquote, go down, then what do I care, right? I don't care if values go down. My mortgage terms don't change, and rents historically stay the same. They might flatline. A lot of times in San Diego, they historically go up, which is weird to think about, but so those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about when I think about the value of an asset. It is not the equity gain, the appreciation value is only realized when you sell the property,
It's just the cherry on
right?
top, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and the only reason why I would sell the property is if maybe I'm retiring and I don't need the cash flow anymore,
Okay.
or I need to buy another property that's got a better cash flow. That would be a good reason to sell. There are good reasons to sell. I just haven't found one yet.
I thank you for sharing all that. I was reading another article the other day, and the total U.S. stock market value right now is about 40 trillion. Do you know how much the U.S. housing market valuation is right now for all the homes out there? It's
I have
about
no idea.
it's about 37 trillion. So it's right in line. And it's really interesting, right? Because the values keep going up. I mean, this is economics 101, but we're probably 3 to 4 million homes short of the demand that's out there right now. And there is nothing showing that there is going to be this huge surplus of inventory coming to the market. And I know low income, housing, they want to try to attain, but what a lot of people don't realize is it's actually more expensive to have that subsidy of that type of home. So all that being said, I see home prices going up. I see rents going up. I see rates going up a little bit, which you may not see 10, 15 offers on a home, but you may see 5 to 7, which is still a ton, right? So that's just what I see on just the mortgage side. And, if you're in a 3% interest rate, and rates go up to 4% and home prices are still up higher, I mean, are you going to be as incentivized to sell? Right. And everyone's going to have a different incentive in selling. And that's where I think maybe some of this out of state investing in more popular markets is a good route to go if you can invest in your current one. And then here's the crystal ball, Nathan, and I'm going to quote you on this. But just knowing what knowing your resources. I mean, can you kind of share some markets with us?
Excuse me. There's a lot of good information for speculation. I would defer to them, right? So AirDNA just came out with their AirDNA is a website that kind of helps you judge the value of an Airbnb property. And it gives so much data on what an Airbnb property will rent for in a specific area at a specific time of year, all kinds of information. AirDNA, fantastic. If you're looking at short-term rentals, you got to check out AirDNA. It's worth knowing all about them. Anyways, they just came out with a report of their top 20 places to invest in. California, I think, had 4 different spots: Big Bear, San Diego, San Francisco, ironically, for Airbnb. I wouldn't have thought of that, but and it's all based on how much money you can rent it for on a nightly basis and how often it's rented. And it's worth the investment of the property. So anyways, they have got a ton of great information about where to invest.
Yeah,
Florida's got like, I can't remember how many different places in Florida. There's probably 15 different places in Florida. So
on the Airbnb thing, make sure before you invest in Airbnb, know what the city regulations are. So, for example, I know for San Diego, it's a lot easier to rent out your primary residence. And what they're going to be doing come July of 2022 is you're going to go into a lottery system. They're going to make it a lot harder for just anyone to go through renting out an Airbnb. So, Nathan, you brought up a great point to me. You were coaching me a couple months ago, and you were talking about investing in a short-term rental market that also could turn into long-term. And I just wanted to finish your thought on. So we got California number 1, and then Florida number 2. What were some markets in Florida that you thought were solid? Sorry to interrupt, but talking about the short-term, if they let go of that, I can convert this to a long-term and be okay.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, right? And really, you have to always be thinking, can this property make money no matter what? And not just cover my mortgage, because you have to remember that there's costs for maintenance, capital improvements, and potentially property management. If you're out of state, you're going to need it. If it's close to you, I don't have property management for my properties in San Diego. So I always asked, can the typical rents in the area cover these expenses if I need it to? And then I'm asking for all of our properties, is Airbnb better? because if there's more of a market, you can make more money over there, then let's convert it to an Airbnb and let's make more money. But anyway, so AirDNA had tons of great stuff. I think that Zillow's got a lot of great information, but the markets I'm looking for, we didn't really get into this earlier, but I look for places that have some like key anchors, right? Like military bases. There's a lot of people there that need to rent. They don't live on base. They have families.
Yep.
They are long, and usually they're there, from 1 to 5 years. They typically need longer term rentals. That's not their home. They don't live there forever, but they're posted there. So military bases are a good thing to look for in the surrounding areas. University towns can be great because there's obviously a need for student renters. And they rent for 12 months, even though they're only there for 9. So that's awesome. There's large corporations, biotech. St. Louis is known for the hospitals. There's a ton of hospitals. Healthcare is a big deal in the St. Louis, Missouri area. And so I look for that kind of stuff when I'm looking at a potential new market. I've heard great things about Oklahoma City. I've heard great things about Tennessee, although some are saying it might be a little overcrowded in terms of investors. But there's just a lot of great places to invest in this country. People need a place to live, and we get to be providers of places to live, and we get to make money at the same time. So,
Can we, if you don't mind sharing about this, because it's pretty remarkable, can you talk about your latest investment that you made in Missouri? How much it costs, right? And then what you're renting that out for currently?
Sure. So the deal, I'm not sure which one I talked to you about, but the one that is actually finalized, because I actually just canceled a deal there that I'm not going to get into. I just canceled a deal there. But the one that we just closed on, I used hard money, and we bought the property for $90,000. The hard money loan was like for 102, I think. And then we put in $25,000 to renovate. So all in, which was high, I added a bathroom into that property. So all in, what is that? You do the math, 115,000, something like that.
And you have a handyman out there. You had a connection that you had on your previous properties that.
Oh yeah, my management company's handling all of that.
Handled all of that. Beautiful.
Yes. So and
you tell them. Can we talk about the rehab really quick? So
yeah.
they go out there, and are they showing you the home, and you're like, hey, I want to do that, and that? Or are they like, hey, I will pay you to tell me what is going to be the best value?
Now you're getting into the weeds. So yes, both.
Okay.
We kind of said, look, I asked, what does the property need, right? And new kitchen, new bathrooms, new floor. Actually, no, flooring was awesome. Flooring was great. New paint. And then we needed to do some work downstairs. It was like a partially finished basement, and basements are new to me. We don't have basements here, but basements are a big deal there. You can't really use them as a bedroom, but they are absolutely used as living space, right? Because there's like laws about egress and all kinds of stuff, but they use them as like living rooms, and man, there's some tricked out basements in the Missouri area. So anyways, I just said, what do we need to do? He said, this is what we got to do, and this is your price to do it. And then we got into it, and he said, look, I highly recommend that you add a bathroom downstairs. I think it will add value. It'll make it easier to rent, that's for sure. You should do it. And there's already, water and drains and stuff like that. I can do it for another $5,000. So I was like, cool. So I think the initial budget was like 18,000 to do what we wanted to do. And then it came out to be 25,000. And that's the biggest thing I would tell anybody is whatever budget you get, just you got to manage them, and you can't just say yes to everything. But in general, you're going to go over that budget. And by how much is another. That might help you determine whether you're working with somebody that's good and reputable and or not. Because if you're constantly going over budget, then you're not telling me the truth on the front end. But in construction projects, stuff always comes up, right? And they rip out a wall and realize, oh my gosh, this wiring's not right. And then this doesn't fit here. We have to move this 4 feet. And in order to do that, we got to rip out this whole thing. So that stuff happens all the time. Be ready for that. But the biggest question to me in terms of BRRRR, which is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. I had to remember all those R's. The idea is you can reuse the same money, right? So one of the biggest issues in this business is we run out of cash. Cash is not unlimited, as much as our government wishes that it was.
Yeah, right. That's
We
right.
run out of it at some point, right? And so you have to figure out you either do it all and then you have to keep working and keep saving, or there's got to be another way to do it. And so the BRRRR process is one of the strategies for recycling your cash. And so you basically pay cash for all this stuff. I used a hard money loan to do it, and then actually just paid it off, which I'm stoked about. This
Congrats.
property, I knew that it would rent for at least $1,200 a month because of the area, my property manager's guidance, and the fact that I've got a property right down the street that rents for $1,200 a month. I knew that it would rent for that much. And so when I did all my math, I thought, you know what? I think this property is going to be worth about 140 when we're done. And so we put in 115 cash, and I think those numbers are right. 90 plus 25 is 115, right, Mike? Oh, those are my kids. Hold on one second.
No worries. Yeah, so for anyone that's tuned in right now, what we're talking about is Nathan's got some great rental properties, and we're talking about one specifically right now that is really just a cash cow, and he's talking about the rehab, and then also he has an after repair value that if he decided to ever sell it, he could actually sell it for more than what he bought it and rehabbed for.
Yes, and the idea is I want to refinance that and get that cash back out, right? So I'll do a 25
your capital back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do a 75% cash out refinance and pull out, I don't know what that is, $100,000 plus or minus, and then I can theoretically do it again. This was my first project like this, and I'm not very good at it. So next one, I would definitely do a few things differently, push for slightly better deals in a couple of areas, but it rents for $1,305 a month. So I'm pulling in $1,300 cash every month.
It's just wild that there are still markets out there that still beat the 1% rule. I mean, it's just with home prices the where they're at. Basically, what the 1% rule is, guys, is let's say that you have $100,000 home, you should expect to get $1,000 in gross rents. And right now, that is, I mean, a home in San Diego for 500,000 is not going to rent you for 5,000 unless it's a spectacular Airbnb. So 1% rule is out there in some markets, and Nathan's talking about that right now. All that's super helpful, and we're going to wrap this up. Super appreciate your time, Nathan. What do you what are your, I guess, predictions with the real estate market for this year? And then what are specific areas that you're still looking to invest in?
Yeah, predictions. It's kind of hard to say. I think that things are going to flatline. I definitely think that as interest rates go up and as we experience more inflation, I think that housing prices are going to get to a more normal appreciation rate. In San Diego, for example, we experienced 20 to 25% increase in value, which is insane. I think next couple of years we're going to experience more like a 6 to 10% appreciation as interest rates go up and housing prices kind of flatline. With that being said, I don't think that they're going to go down anytime soon because, as you mentioned earlier, there really isn't that much on the market. There's a lot of buyers and not a lot of houses, so that value is going to stay high, in my opinion. I think it's like that in most of the country. Now, I'm not familiar with every market in this country, but it seems like in most places that I've looked into, there's just not that many houses, and there's a lot of people that want to buy them. And part of it might be because there's big investment companies that are getting into it, into single family homes. That's affecting the market. And you know, I don't really know all the different factors, but I definitely think there's going to be more of a normal appreciation over the next couple of years. But in terms of next market that I want to get into, I don't have an answer for you there. I'm happy to continue to investing in St. Louis, Missouri, because as long as we make money, I'd like to buy another property in Florida because the Airbnb market there is still strong. And I would love to get more property here in San Diego. So that's something I'm actively. We were actually just an escrow on a property close to us, and it fell through for some extenuating circumstances that were surprising to me and to everyone involved. But we're looking for another property here in San Diego too.
Yeah. Going over the different types of properties, you think the single family is a really healthy? Are you looking at multi-unit? I know it really depends, but do you still think the single family is a good opportunity to cash flow on, or you lean more towards the multi-units? What are you doing for? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on it?
we are focused at this point exclusively on single family homes, and part
Is it
of
a
the reason.
easier barrier? Is it easier to get in with that? Is that why, or why is that for you guys?
No, I mean my reasons. I mean, and this could change because as I continue to learn and grow, my perspective changes on things. But my thought was there's more turnover in multi-unit properties like apartment complexes, just a lot more
Mm,
turnover. So a person stays for a year and then you got to, replace carpet and repaint. And it's just more expense. Um, People who rent in single family homes tend to stay for longer.
it's good
They're
to know.
usually families. Um, the people that left our house that we were at this morning were there for 5.5 years. So
Wow.
that's good. That's healthy, right? We were able to make good money. They enjoyed living there. We enjoyed having them there. And now I have to do a turnover, and I'm gonna have to put in some money to make it rentable. And it's already healthy. It's already a great house. It looks really good, but I got to change some carpets, change some paint, fix some stuff in the backyard, minor stuff that just costs money. And so I do that less with single family homes. You have to do it more, from what I understand. You have to do it more with the multifamily.
That's such a good reminder. I mean, talking about rich dad, poor dad, it's like, oh, the multi units are where it's at. But you're right. There's more headache with that too. And then also in some markets that cash flow, you just want to be careful with the type of tenants that you're dealing with in those areas too, right? So I guess the biggest takeaway that I've learned just from you on this is really lean into the professionals that you like and that you trust, right? I mean, it seems like you really have a good connection with your property manager. He's telling you, "Hey, I would do this," and you're like, "Do it," right? I mean, that's what you do. I mean, that's what do what you're good at. The people that are on your team, really trust them to hold your hand, and I think that's gonna be a success just right there. So I think that's
Yeah.
a great start, and thanks for reminding everyone on that. Um, if you could just do it all over again, just talking to your younger self, what would you do differently?
Well, I would have started a lot earlier. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I wish that I wish I had had the perspective. And really I'm gonna call it the rich dad poor dad perspective, but it's really a healthy understanding of what money is, where value is found. I wish I had that earlier in my life, and I blame it on myself. I mean, the truth is, someone probably told me, and I just didn't listen. But I might, if I could speak to my younger self, I'd say buy more property earlier. Pay attention to the markets. Pay attention to ups and downs. Listen to people who are smarter than you who've been doing this thing.
yeah,
But yeah, I think starting sooner would have been my thing. And I mean, and to someone that is just getting started, if you're just getting started and you're listening to this and you're thinking, I don't have $10,000. How the heck am I going to do this? There are ways, and there are people who know how to do things. And I would just say keep researching, keep listening, keep paying attention, and eventually keep hustling, keep looking, keep asking, keep talking about what you want to do. And eventually you find somebody that says, oh, you could do this. There's ways to do it. And you go, really? Yeah, you can do it. For example, people talk about all the time. I haven't done this yet. I think it's brilliant. I would really like to do it. They talk about buying properties with no cash out of your pocket at all. And I'm
yeah,
thinking, that sounds nice. I'd like to figure out how to do that. And a lot of it has to do with relationships and doing seller financing and all kinds of unique and creative ways of getting stuff done. So I would have tried to encourage myself to be more of a hustler earlier, ask more questions earlier. The internet wasn't nearly as big of a deal back then as it is now. And so it's easier to find information now. And I would say jump all over that, man. Get on it.
super appreciate that. Everything's an opportunity cost, right? So what Nathan is talking about is like real estate syndicates, kind of like REITs, where kind of are a passive investor. So you can basically form kind of a corporation. You have your, general partners, the people that are finding the deals, and you have your limited partners, which are basically like, hey, I trust you. Here's the money. Go invest that. You can do a Burr method, get that money back. So, Nathan, I actually have some things on here. I'm just going to go like over the question. This may sound a little bit aggressive, but are you open to like doing partnerships on some out of state deals? I mean, if people wanted to reach out to you, and I mean, is that something that you're open to potentially?
Yeah, of course. I'm always open to talking to people. In fact, our deal in Florida we did with a partner, and it went really well. And I would probably do it again. So yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Thank you for that.
Without making any commitments, I'm open to
Totally. Yeah. And then any last question. Thank you for your time. Seriously, Nathan. Super appreciate that. I'll put his contact info in there too, guys. Is there any non-negotiables like, hey, I'm getting into this home and I got to meet this criteria, or I am not going to offer on it, or I'm going to look at the next home?
That is a great question. I think the biggest is it's got to cash flow out the gate. I cannot, it is not okay to lose money on a property. Even if it's the very beginning, even if it's early, that's unacceptable to me. I don't know that there's any other. I'm really not sure. I mean, I guess in my out of state stuff, my property manager has to sign off on it because at the end of the day, he's got to manage it. And, I don't want him to manage something he can't collect rent on or is in a dangerous area, which there are some dangerous areas in St. Louis. So I would say he has to sign off on that. So that so that would be my only other one is if my property manager says no, I'm not doing it, then in my case, I would say I'm passing on this.
That's awesome. Hey, that was the big questions that I had. Nathan, thank you so much for your time. Nathan, again, he is a local real estate agent out here in San Diego. He's also a real estate investor, has multiple properties locally and out of state. And again, super appreciate your time, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. And I'm going to toot your horn a little bit because you know your stuff when it comes to the world of finance. And so you're one of my team members more recently, right? Like we just kind of got partnered up and I absolutely, I have absolutely loved your help in our lives. So anyways, he doesn't talk much about himself, but you should use Mike Stowers.
Thanks for saying that. It's always good to be around people that are smarter than you, right? Don't want to be the smartest guy in the room.
100%.
Yeah. I learned something new every day too. You can do a lot of business. You can do a lot of real estate deals. I can do a lot of home loans. And, we had there was a transaction that, I learned something new about too. And, the loan industry is always changing. They're always thinking of more creative ways to provide more housing. But there's still very much guidelines, right? At the end of the day, when you're going through an institutionalized loan, you're going to get typically better pricing, better rates than if you go with the private money, which is a little bit more riskier. But with that comes a little bit more guidelines. So, we had a recent deal. ADUs are really popular right now, very popular. And, there was 2 detached ADUs on a single family home. And with the zoning and with the call out on the 2 detached ADUs, it couldn't go traditional financing, and there's just things that I'm learning every day, the things that you're learning every day. So I think the biggest thing too is just having a good network of people that are just trying to learn more. And also that people that do know more get connected with them because you're not going to have the answers for everything.
Yeah.
Super appreciate the relationship you have with your wife, with your family. You're a man of faith and you really find time for everything. Any secrets on how you find the energy and the time just to be very present with wherever you're at?
Oh man. Saying no to the things that are not worth your time, being able to define what that means for you, I think is a big deal. Saying yes to the critical things. I heard someone once say, I think it was Bob Goff, who said, I quit something every Thursday. Thursday is my day that I quit something. And I loved that. I just thought, if I'm going to ever quit anything, it's going to be on a Thursday. And just, quitting things that are no longer pushing me towards what we believe our goals are. I think that's an important thing. Being careful. You got to guard that yes. What you say yes to matters, and it's going to require an investment of your time and your input and your energy. So learning how to say no really well is important.
Thank you. Last thing I promise, and we're going to finish it. Podcast that you're listening to right now, a book that you're reading right now that has really helped currently.
Oh man, I am still listening to Bigger Pockets. Their podcast is still fantastic. I was just listening to one yesterday, all about this kid. I don't know how old this kid is. I think he was 19 years old when he bought his first property.
81 doors or something now, something
yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
So anyways, that stuff, it just fires me up and encourages me. And I always get a new idea. Even if it's not something I'm going to use, I feel like it keeps my mindset focused on what we're trying to accomplish. I listened to a real estate podcast. I'm not going to be any help. I don't remember what it was called, so I'm just going to drop that one. Anyways, I listened to another podcast that's helpful to me. I also read books from time to time. I'm reading a book right now. This has nothing to do with real estate. It's called It's Good to Be a Man. And it is a good book because I feel like it's important that I don't only read things that are focused on real estate or investing or I think that there's other parts of who I am, and there are parts of me that require that I become something better. And this is one of those books that pushes me to become something better, a better man, a better husband, a better father. And so while I'm trying to build something, Joanna, my wife, and I are trying to build something on this real estate investing side of things. I can't forget that I also have a responsibility as a husband, and I have a responsibility as a father. And so it's good to be a man. It's good to be a woman too, but that's not me. I'm on the other side. So there you go.
Thank you for sharing that. You know, I'm sure you don't get as much sleep as you'd like. You're thinking about where's the next real estate deal. You're thinking about, oh my gosh, are my kids okay? I'm sure there's just so much going through your head, but you know, you come from a good faith background. You got a good head on your shoulders, and you're putting good stuff in your mind too. And I think those are all really important things. Thank you so much again for your time, Nathan. This has been awesome. I'll put his contact info for anyone that wants to connect with him. He's someone that I very much highly recommend. Aside from just knowing him, you know, I do my research on people too. And Nathan knows his stuff. He is learning about stuff too, but he's a great contact just to have in your arsenal about life, out-of-state investing. So highly recommend connecting with him. So again, thank you, Nathan. I'm going to end the broadcast, and I will put your contact information in there. And again, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. I really, really appreciate it.
Awesome, dude. Have a great weekend. Thank you, guys.
You too.